It's because of the curses. We are in these curses. Our people have been suffering in the fields. We've been segregated. We've been through racism. All of this just because of the curses. Because Israel is too disobedient. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies, for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
Of interview with me, Brother Mesa, Truth Teller. Hey, Shalom, family, Most High in Christ bless. Welcome to the broadcast again. It's good to be back in the view with my brothers and sisters. I know it's been quite a while, and as life is, situations do present themselves. We who are in this captivity under these curses, we must also be aware and reminded that we have to work these plantations. And so, whatever the oppressor, the master decides that he requires us, we must do as good, obedient, righteous brothers and sisters. Okay? So, yeah, work has been taking a toll, but nonetheless, life goes on, so we must give our due diligence also to our spirituality and give all praises to the Most High in all things. And so, such as it is, we must endure, we must endure, we must endure. But nonetheless, as I say, apart from the spiritual aspect of our person, we must also try to find time to give ourselves physical rest. All praises, and I'm not speaking generally to the Sabbath. The Sabbath is a time of righteousness that we must adhere to the will and the right of the Most High God, but we must also find time in our daily lives, to rest, to relax, to kick back, to unwind, and not trying to suggest that we should get, into things that we should and ought not to, but, find something that excites you, that brings joy to your life, that relaxes you, that, alleviates that pressure and stress of the everyday life, and indeed of the oppression that we are always reminded that we are in, because some of us, we go through, financial stress and burdens. Some of us, we're plagued by family members and issues regarding children. A lot of us, we're plagued by health and other physical ailments, which causes us to always be in a place of discomfort, in a place of falling in faith. So again, we must try to balance the natural man with the spiritual man. All praises. So that is what we have to do. And as I said, I often find myself um, lingering and falling away from that energy, from that drive, not the desire, not the passion, but the energy and the drive, because there is only so much that one individual can house to do in a day. Okay? And so that is why most times we find that, the show does not carry on in the regular way that I would like to have it done. And, all through the will and the working of the Most High, things have not aligned as, I would have through Christ wanted it to be. But again, all praises to the Most High. The word must get out. The show must go on. As they say in show business, the show must go on nonetheless. And I always say, if it's me and me alone, it will get done. If it's me and those that the Most High bless us to be together with, then so be it. But again, it will get done. All right, so as we can see, tonight's show is in the View Live and what it takes to make America great again. And I know a lot of you have been following in the news. And before I start, let me encourage you. I was once encouraged by a man I take to be a wise, astute man in this truth. And he encouraged me to not to fall victim to this Western news, because the Western news only gives you what it perceives that you should know, or what it perceives that is fit for you to hear or see. So I encourage you, as I was encouraged, to go to some of those foreign news networks, whether it be in, let's say, Asia, whether it be in the East, but find some news that opens your mind and gives you more insight and knowledge on the view of the other nations, on how they perceive the West, how they perceive you and I, how they perceive Babylon. Yes, indeed, how they perceive America. Because we know, as any great nation, all countries, all nations, all people will um, give you their view of what they feel is pertinent to their people. So when you tap into their view and their news, you get their interpretation of the other nations, of the other people. And so that is good, so that it would open up your learning base, it would open up your knowledge, it would open up your understanding and your eyes to the truth as it pertains. Because as a child, if we are only giving that suckling milk from our parent, we would never know any other dietary food or any other nutritional values other than what we are fed. And that is what America does. That is what the Western news does. It is controlled by the ones in power. Okay? And so I say all that to say, try to open up your sights into the international world when it comes to media, when it comes to news, and when it comes to broadcast of things pertinent and going on in the world. Okay, so back to what I was beginning to talk about with the show, with regard to what it takes to make America great again. And for the past year, we have all been seeing what Trump Donald Trump, the President of the United States, is doing in the way of his way of trying to make America great again. And again, we cannot fault any one man for his ideas, his beliefs, and the way that he carries about uh, his dream of doing what he feels is right for his people. Okay, we have a way that we ought to go. We who are the chosen people of the Most High, we have a leader, okay, a supreme leader, which is the Most High God. He sets our laws, He sets our ways, and He sets our directions, and indeed He sets our lives, whom shall live and who shall not live, and how we shall live. Okay, and so for all intents and purposes, we know that we have been lacking to the Most High for many, many years, from generation to generation. We are now in the countless 400 plus years of disobedience, and we are still under these curses. Okay? Why? Because, as I said, He has a way for us to live, a way for us to be, and we have been neglected from that way. And so, therefore, we are punished. Okay? We are punished as a people. And so, again, as I say, Donald Trump, he finds himself to be that great savior, okay, the savior of the American people. All right, he feels it is his duty, elect, that, well, self appointed more so than elect, self appointed duty to make America great again. All right, And we have to also be mindful that this is not his first run of the mill. He was there last time in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was elected, and he was the president then. And he stirred up the world, and indeed he stirred up America. All right, America has never had so much civil unrest and discord of the like since Donald Trump would have come into power the first time. All right, and from then to now, it is still having discord, still having civil unrest because from the first time he was in power and he lost his election, he and his followers, they did not let it end. They did not let it rest. Already threw tantrums like a baby. He complained about everything. He did all he could within his might, his power, and his finances to, stir up problems, all the while amassing favor in the eyes of the so-called white man in America. Because during the time of the Donald Trump era, the first time, they were given the authority, the power, the privilege to speak their minds, to act accordingly. All right, the way that America was built and founded to be for the so-called white man. All right, long since the era of the Jim Crow, when they could have done anything they wanted, when they restricted the black man, the so-called black man, okay, to a life of poverty, to a life of servitude, to a life of fear. Okay, this is what has come back to the great country of America and to the great nation of America. The people are up in arms, they're up in fear because nobody knows what would happen around the corner the next day. All right, it went from mass incarcerations, it went to people being arrested in the streets on their jobs. Okay, so there is civil unrest because when the police are taking law into their own hands without the courts, when the army is being placed in the national streets without there being any consensus or warrant or need as to why, and no agreement by the uh, unilateral bodies of the US government, that is civil unrest. That is dissension. Okay? All because one man, the elected president, is giving the people what they desire through his might, through his will, and through his personal agenda. Mind you, do not feel that it is for the people, by the people, okay? It is for a certain people, by a certain person. As we can see, Mr. Trump is doing what he feels he ought to do, okay, to please those who are in power, who avails him the authority to live like a king. Yes, and again, as I said, he is not wrong. He is not without his right. Okay, because it would be him if they allow, or it would not be him if he does not do as he's told. All right, and we know those who are with understanding that when we read the prophecies, we know that this is the last ruling kingdom, as according to Daniel. When we look at the visions of Daniel, okay, and we know according to John in the book of Revelations, this is that man. All right, not maybe not the man himself in the physical body, but he is carrying out the tenets and the aspects and the characteristics of that man. Okay, that Revelation speaks of. All right, smooth talking, promising everything, delivering on nothing, aligning himself with the powers of the world. And indeed, this is that particular man. And another thing, peacemaker, truce breaker. Okay, this is that man. He is doing all of these things. And why? He feels that this is playing into the line, okay, that the masses become so enthralled with. They're falling in love with that line, making America great again. Okay, and so everything he does, they feel he does it with the good intention of making America great again, not understanding that the America that he's dreaming about is the ideology of a nation, not the people in that nation, but the ideology of a nation. They stand resolute in believing that they are the greatest nation that ever was, ever will be, and will stand forever, not the people. Okay? So we have to get that understanding. They do not envision the people as America, they envision the name, the government, and what it stands for as America. All right? And they love to bolster the Constitution, and they would love to um, hinge all of their pride on that flag. No nation in the world prides themselves more on that flag than the United States of America. This is what that country is all about. And when I say that country, I'm talking about the ruling powers, the ruling family, not the people. The people are just pawns. They are being played upon. They sway the masses for them, whether it's Republican, whether it's Democrat. They all sit in the seat of power. Remember what it says: "Earth is given into the hands of the wicked." They sit in the seat of power. Okay, so the things they do are not for the people itself, but for the name of the nation. All right, that is what it's all about. Okay, because we've seen for the past countless generations how the nation America has gone against all of its rules, all of its allies, all of the international bodies that try to say they uphold the standard of justice, equality, and peace in the world. But yet, we see America has, for more than 4 or 5 occasions, gone against each and every one of these organizations, gone against each and every one of these allies, and gone against each and every one of those persons whom they deem to be a threat to their great nation, to their way of life, to their ideology, to the lie of the dream of America being a democracy. All right, and so when you challenge that, and when you challenge whomever is the person sitting in the seat of power, you now likely put yourself as a target for for victimization. All right, you set yourself for a great and devastating downfall. And so this is nothing new. All right, it's been seen to happen with Vietnam, it happened with China, happened with Cuba, happened with Iraq, happened with where else? What's the country there? Libya, happened with what's the other country there in the Middle East? What's the name? Iran. Okay, so they've been at this for hundreds and hundreds of years. Okay, and this is the most recent. We're talking America now. We're not even opening the table to the so-called white man and the atrocities that they have done throughout the world. And I was sitting down listening to what's her name, the president of the UN General Assembly. I forget her name right now, and she gave an interesting interview today. Okay, she was being grilled on her position as the the president of the UN General Assembly. And for those who don't know, the UN General Assembly is the so-called international body. Okay, that it's something like the U.S. Congress, okay, but it's an international body, let's say an international Congress where each member of, they call it states, but it's each member of a country has a sitting person. Well, most countries, because not all countries have been given the ratification to come in, because again, it's all about your ideology, your belief, your natural resources, if you qualify as a nation, all of these things come into play. So that within itself tells you it's still unfair, okay? Because you have no right if you are, let's say, Africa, if you are, let's say, Haiti, you have no right in the UN because all you're there for is to be plundered. All you're there for is for servitude. All you're there for is for your natural resources to be taken. Okay, you have no vote, no say. So they're never going to let you in because you're always going to want the light to be shined on you. When the so called white man knows what they've done to these countries, when they know the value you present to them. They don't want you coming in there and having a vote, whereas you can cause a problem. All right. So getting back to her interview, I sat and I listened to her, and the interviewer, he asked her about how America has been allowed, and more so Donald Trump has been allowed to run amok in the world, even spilling off his power. Because remember what the um, Revelation said, that the dragon gave his power to the beast. Okay, he gave the power to the beast, and it's similar to the same thing as we are saying now. America gave its power to Israel, because he asked that, how can Israel be allowed to do the atrocities, commit genocide in the Middle East, killing anybody it deems fit they want to wipe out, more so destroying the people in Gaza? And she gave good answers to the questions, I must say. She kept her cool. She was very professional, and spoke as a very enlightened and intelligent individual. But the thing I took from that is that she is an ally of the oppressors. Okay, she's just one of the many faces that sits in the chair, okay, that pardons the wrongdoings of these so called white nations. All right? Because if you realize her heritage, she is a so called German. All right? And one of the things she said in her interview is she spoke, because remember, when she speaks as the top chair in the UN Council, sorry, in the UN Assembly, and she spoke from the position of being a deputy leader in the government of Germany. All right, she was the vice chancellor, if I'm not mistaken. All right, and she said that we, and when she said we, she admitted that we, the Germans, killed 600 million Jews. All right, she said that is an atrocity not seen in the lights of the world, which is a lie. Okay, and they know that have accepted this lie on their shoulder to bolster and push and fulfill. Okay, the lie of what happened in those camps. Mind you, I'm not saying that it's all a lie. I'm saying that the numbers are very, very over exaggerated, because, yes, they killed Jews, but nowhere in the likes of 600 million men and women were killed. Because what happened to the Chinese? What happened to the so called blacks? What happened to the other nations? We have never heard anything about the numbers of those people that were killed. And more so than that, the greatest atrocity that ever happened to a nation of people on this earth is still being recorded. The so called black man has been raped, robbed, pillaged, enslaved. No nation on this earth has ever been enslaved. You had some people sold into slavery at times, but I'm talking about a whole nation of people, okay? Sold into slavery, driven out of their homes, taken away from their families, separated from their children, their wives, their husbands, given to men as chattel, as gifts, as playthings, fed to beasts to be eaten, okay, used for what do you call it? What is it? Rearing of, not rearing. I forget the word, when they use you to make children. Okay, our women were used as baby making factories. Men were used as bulls to make women have more slave babies. So this is the torture that we've been through and continue to go through. And again, I say not only to the fact that the so-called white man is at fault, because we are at fault also from our forefathers, our generations of forefathers, because we refuse to humble ourselves, come back to the Most High God and seek His face. But nonetheless, He is the weapon that the Most High uses against us. All right, not to get too spiritual and deep into the religion aspect of things, but I'm just stating the facts. But yes, her interview shed a lot of light on the way that they think because she was asked about the same thing. How did the United States was allowed to go into Iraq and they could declare, themselves to be gods in Iraq? They sit in the seat of power there. Nobody said anything. Nobody did anything. How was Russia allowed to go into um, um, Ukraine and do what they did? And how Germany at the time when she was the vice chancellor was in bed with Israel. They were selling Israel arms to fight against uh, um, the Palestinians and to fight against the Iranians. All of these things were presented to her. And as I said, she gave, to my view, good, insightful answers. She could not condemn nor could she uphold, or she spoke from her opinion and her feelings, meaning because you can hear in her voice saying that, okay, I accept that, yes, we did these things and yes, we are at fault. But she could not condemn our government. She could not condemn the United States. She could not condemn anybody, even though she was the person in authority doing these things, even though she sits in the chair of authority of the organizations which should be fighting against these things. But they had a little blue book with them, and that blue book, much like the Constitution of the United States, much like the flag of the United States, that was the power and the authority that rested solely, that said, okay, this can be done because why? If everybody negates and neglects this book, then the world would be in anarchy and chaos. Okay, so she was trying to point out to say, well, okay, we have some bad apples here. They would do things. They may not follow the charter of what they're supposed to do. But needless to say, if one bad apple goes astray, you have hundreds more that are on the tree or in line with what should be done, and they know what the law says and what the rule says. But they do not annex that bad apple. They do not go and fight against that bad apple. They allow the bad apple to rot other apples and destroy people. So her interview, it was a very impressive interview, and as I said, I was impressed with it, and I would advise anyone to go and check it out. It was on Al Jazeera TV, and as I said, her name is I think it's Broderick Anna Lay, I think is Robeck, of if I'm not mistaken. But again, she is the president of the United Nations um, General Assembly. Okay, one of the bodies of the United Nations. All right, but so back to the United States. Yes, okay, so they have pillaged, they have rampaged, and they have destroyed many of countries. Okay, and their latest acquisition, as we all seen in the news, is Venezuela. For so long, Trump has been pricking at Venezuela, and he denounced Maduro, the president of Venezuela, as not being a duly elected leader. He said that Venezuela stole their land, stole their oil, and so many accusations said that the Maduro government and his wife and affiliates are drug dealers, smugglers. They are a cartel. So they have built up, well, not they, he has a personal agenda through the backing of those people who his, I would say, arm of power. And they have put those individuals to be terrorists, and not just terrorists, narco terrorists, meaning cartels and terrorists. All right, and so they've labeled them. And so the latest event that we've seen is where Trump instituted an arrest of Maduro. So we saw where the United States employed their navies, their armed forces, and whomever else they used in that abduction of the president and his wife. Okay, so they say that they went there to take away Maduro. Okay, that's what they went for. But when we listen to the news, Donald Trump says that they are going to run Venezuela. So if you went there to remove someone that was not supposed to be in power, how can you now assume power? You're not the legal agent. You're not the elected individual. You're not the citizens of the country. You're essentially now replacing the same person or individual that was an not duly elected individual, and you're assuming yourself as the king of that land with all rights to its minerals, its resources. Okay, and we know what it's all about. Again, as I said, the leaders who are behind you, the power that's behind you, they want the oil and they want the gold. They don't give a hoot about the Venezuelan people. And then you have all those idiots over there in Venezuela, all those idiots in the United States of America, and all those idiots in Spain who are cheering, yay! But they don't know. This is the same man who was just rounding up your people like cattle, strapping them down with cuffs, putting them in detention centers, sending them home on plane loads. Now he turns around and invades your country to steal the natural resources. And you're applauding him because you say he will move someone out of power. But the same people are still there. Just as Donald Trump is the head of this shadow organization, the same was with Maduro. All he was a face being pulled on puppet strings by the people who were in power behind him. Because Venezuela is a very, very rich country. Despite they are lacking in the production of oil, they are very rich because remember, they have gold, they have oil, they have families there with power whom supported Maduro. And so these people are still there in power. That's why you see the people are afraid. They know, yes, Maduro is gone, but the army is still there. The politicians are still there. The rich oligarchs are still there. So what's the change? Unless you want the United States to now come in and take control, unless you want to fall prey to the American dream, where they suck your country dry, eat up all its resources, enslave the people, oppress. That's all that happens. The things that they don't do and would not be allowed to do in the great nation of America, they do in other places, especially in so called third world nations. They don't care that they dig out all your natural resources, that they, um, deplete all of your natural resources. They don't care. Poison your land, poison your water, tear down all of your natural rainforests. They don't care how many people die of poisoning from radiation. Okay, they don't care. But this is what they do to make America great again. All right, so they have taken the initiative of policing this Western Hemisphere. Believe it, not just the Caribbean, the Western Hemisphere. Every nation, every country in this Western Hemisphere falls under their prey and watchful eye. They've made insinuation they want to make Canada a state of America. They want Greenland. They want Panama. And indeed, they would take Mexico if they feel like. But just be reminded, Mexico is too close. Canada is too close. An all-out war with a country like Mexico, if they were to bomb Mexico with a nuclear bomb, it would destroy some parts of the United States, and they don't want that. Same with Canada. And Canada has the power and might that they can destroy thousands and thousands of square miles of the United States of America. So it'll be a war that is not in the favor of any of the three countries. Okay, so that is the reason why you see they do not enact their will and might with those two countries. But anything outside of this natural landmass where they can deter any missile or rocket from hitting, yeah, they will do that. All right, because they don't have sovereign bases in Mexico, they don't have sovereign bases in Canada. All right, but anybody else within this Western Hemisphere who dares to raise their hand or opens their mouth and says anything wrong, beware. Maduro was just an example. Okay, Trump is going to do what it takes, and not for the American people, but for the name of the United States of America, for it to be upheld according to prophecy. As they always say, the greatest nation on God's green earth. And they wholeheartedly believe that. And if you want to be an American, if you want to live in America, that's an oath you must swear to. And anyhow you disrespect that name, you disrespect that country, you disrespect that flag, you become a traitor. And we know what happens to traitors. But America will be great. Oh, yes, indeed. Better believe it. It will be great. Because no man can stop them, no country can stop them, no nation can stop them, save the coming of Jesus Christ. They're going to fall, mind you, but it will not be at our hands unless the Most High empower us. That's why you see all nations are afraid. They can topple America at any time they wish, but none of the nations have the insight to get together to do it right now until the Most High put that conviction on them to do His will. So when that time comes, we will see. When the time comes, we will see. We're all waiting on this next world war. And it's not going to be a world war. It's not going to be a world war. It's going to be one nation against the world. But these are the things that we're going to be witnessing from today on, all right, to make America great again. And I'm going to predict they're going to move against Cuba. They're going to move against Mexico. They're going to move against Panama. All right? We'll witness it. We'll see it. But the time is going to come when either maybe China, maybe Russia, okay, one of those great nations is going to stand up and declare war. Because the point is going to come when America will bully and bully and bully until it touches home to one of them and they decide and they say, no, enough is enough. And then we're going to see the EU, okay, the EU come into play. Because remember, the UN is nothing. All of those governing bodies, where are they? All in America, in New York. The UN, NATO, World Health Organization, the World Bank, all in New York, all in America. So those are puppet shadow organizations put there to juggle the world's resources, all right, to keep countries in starvation, to keep countries poor, to cover the tracks of the industrial world who go and pillage and plumage nations. Then they tell you, you have to give donations to help. How do you give donations to help? You have organizations go into these countries, open up refineries, factories, plants, hiring people to dig in mines, dying like dogs, but then you beg the world to give donations when you have the authority to tax these people, to tax these entities, these businesses, so that they can return back to the countries the things that they've been taking, help the families and the victims of the people whose lives they destroy by poisoning their waters, by burying their family members in these mines where they put them in to dig, by destroying their rainforest, tearing down all the trees and wildlife to open up factories. That's what you're supposed to be doing as these world bodies and entities watching out for the world and the peoples in the world. But you allow these corporations to run amok, to do whatever they want, to make money. But yet you turn a blind eye and tell people, oh, we're trying to help these people, we're trying to help those people, we want to end starvation, we want to feed this one, we want to clothe that one. Well, get to doing it. You want to take the little that the poor man has to give to the needy, but the rich, you allow them to do what they want and run amok and don't have to pay any concession or without any reprisal. Where's the fairness in that? So, needless to say, America controls it all. The great United States of America controls it all. And they're telling Canada they're not paying their part in was it the G7, where they're supposed to pay their shares. So Canada is not coming up to standard, but yet they owe the UN. They haven't paid their dues in the UN. But nobody is saying anything about that. Who wants to prick the beast? But all in all, this is what it takes to make America great again. And the answer is by nobody doing anything. That's how they're going to be great. Nobody dares to do anything. They say all they want, but nobody does anything. All right, so keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, keep watching, keep listening. Because Donald Trump is just getting started. And the people behind him, they have insatiable appetites. They want the world and the resources of the world, and they would stoop at anything to get it. All right, and so the puppet, Donald Trump, he's only going to be there for a while, but the damage that he's going to inflict and the problems that he's going to cause are going to last a lifetime. So just be prepared for it, brothers and sisters. All right, and so with that, I say shalom, Most High in Christ bless. Brothers and sisters, be safe, enjoy, and stay up, stay in the spirit, stay strong. Shalom.